Welcome to another in the series of LexisNexis's Facing Change series. I'm delighted on this occasion to be welcoming Katrina Cook, who's going to be walking through a number of financial crime elements in relation to the wealth markets. First of all, Katrina, we're really interested in the impact of COVID-19 and how it's changed or potentially changed your market, and you're large both in terms of investment and financial advice. So across those quite different markets, can you just give us a little bit of insight in terms of how behaviours may have changed over the past 2 to 3 months in both advice and investments?
Yeah, I think especially in wealth management, this has been a very big change because it is very much a face-to-face business. People would like to see their investment managers, and investment managers want to see their clients. So I think it's had a big impact, and I think it really has made people push themselves outside of their comfort zone and go digital on occasions where they wouldn't have in the past. So in that sense, I do think, we're seeing a new future.
So firms are under a moral pressure really now to make it easier for customers to do business, but they're also under a compliance set of pressures to make sure that they reduce risks of financial crime and all sorts of other risks. Do you see a real conflict now between the responsibility to firms to make it easier for customers to do business in these disrupted times versus their obligations to make sure compliance obligations are met?
Oh, absolutely. I think that's going to be one of our biggest challenges now, because it's very easy in a couple of years' time, when you have all the data and you've realized that fraudsters were abusing the situation, for example, and managed to manipulate new systems and people's insecurity to use, for example, fake ID, and then come back and say that the financial institutions didn't do enough to detect and to prevent. So I think it's it can be quite a stressful situation to be in at the moment, where you feel there's definitely a need to accommodate clients. There's definitely a need to make sure that they can still get a hold of their investments, invest other funds. And of course, we don't do transactions as such at Bruin, so that's a level, of lower risk for us. But imagine when you are, and you have to make sure that people can access their funds. So of course, situations change, and we rely a lot on wet signatures and, birth and marriage and death certificates. And how do you accommodate now that people can't bring them in?
What do you think the biggest financial crime risk is that firms are exposed to at the moment as a consequence of that disruption?
I think the biggest risk actually is this whole change and what it does to people. And that, of course, is a great landscape for fraud. So it probably has to be fraud on top, but in so many different shapes. And it's not that fraud risk itself has changed. It's not even that the fraudsters have really changed. It's not even maybe that the fraud types have changed. It may still be investment fraud, it may still be fake ID, but the typologies have probably changed, and they probably changed quite quickly. And it's great when we are all in this moment of stress, and with people working at home with their kids on their laps, trying to maintain these controls. That's when we're vulnerable, especially at Bruin. We do believe that fraud is our biggest threat in terms of financial crime. And we've also seen a lot of market abuse alerts increase, which I think most of our colleagues would have as well. So that is indeed the two areas that we have our focus on at the moment.
So as a wealth manager, you have complex relationships to manage across a complex supply chain. Are you seeing attempts emerging to surrender investments, surrender value held in policies, and pay money away to, for example, bank accounts that haven't been verified previously?
In terms of using falsified ID and things like that, we're just as exposed as anyone else. And you realize that it's actually an appetite thing, like it or not. You have to increase your risk appetite, because now you're not seeing face-to-face, sitting down face-to-face with your client, and that was one of your mitigators.
Traditionally, wealth management firms have placed quite a lot of reliance on the face-to-face relationship that they have with their customers, and using that face-to-face relationship to authenticate who customers are. Now that that's made more difficult, do you find that there's increased pressure to use digital solutions to solve similar problems? Digital solutions, for example, to authenticate who people are?
Yeah, absolutely. And we're looking at that. I think we all are. And it's been interesting because I think it's been, like I said in the start, both for us and for our clients, it's been a learning curve, but also a realization that we can do this. We can actually meet online, and we can use tools to make sure that documents are safely, transferred, and we can make sure that we authenticate those as well as we can. And there are some really good solutions out there.
Just to go back to some of the points you were making there, you call out some of the changes. Do you think they'll be short term? Are they COVID only, or are they going to be applying for the longer term? Do you see this as a longer term impact on the market?
Oh, I think because it's made us go out and look for these tools. Why would we get rid of the good ones? You're probably going to try a few that you find actually that didn't really quite work the way we wanted it to. But I think quite a lot of us in second line are quite excited about the response we get now when we say, actually, we could use this tool or that tool, and people seriously looking at it. So yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of this will stay.
And just in relation to some of the tools that are available to firms now, particularly in the wealth sector, we talked about financial crime and the benefit they have in that space, but do you think the same tools also provide benefits across other parts of the business?
I do, and I think it's really good that they do. And it's really important that we stop thinking about financial crime as like a separate function, a separate check, a separate system, because actually the only way to really detect financial crime is to just look at behavior and understanding the client pattern. And you want to understand that for many reasons, not just because it might facilitate financial crime. So it's actually a great thing if the system you use doesn't just prevent financial crime, but actually helps with other things as well, and understanding your client base and what they need.
So we've talked about almost firm and market-driven changes that are causing firms to look at new solutions. Are you seeing customers also make the same demands? Are customers looking for tools within firms that allow them to have more customer-centric service, faster processing, faster authentication, and so on?
The older generation wouldn't, but now you're starting to see people from the younger generations that want to start investing their funds, and they want to go in on their phone and have a look to see what their balance is and how it's doing. They're not going to wait until their quarterly face-to-face meeting with their investment manager. So I think it is changing, and I think all wealth managers are changing with that demand as well.
Trina, and thank you. And finally, just one more question, if I may. So I'm just really interested if there's any takeaways that you have for the people listening in to this.
Yeah, I think one takeaway has been we can do this. It actually works. We can work like this. Not saying we all want to sit in our home office every day, especially those that don't have a home office, but actually most of us can do it. It's been a good experience for that reason, although a little bit too quickly and not for the right reasons. But also I think we've learned that we have to be able to do it. We have to be able to work remotely, and that includes we have to help our clients be able to communicate with us remotely as well, and help them push themselves over that comfort zone. And I think one thing I've also learned is that although situation have changed, the whole world we operate in has changed, the regulatory expectations have not. We are still equally responsible, if not more, to make sure that our controls are working.